So this panel will have one lady. She's called Shiro Theuri. She's the CTO for Frontline. A round of applause. And then we'll have Sam Kitonyi, who is the Director of Engineering at Jumo. Karibu sana. And then finally we'll have Huston Malande, CEO of Skyline Design. Karibu. Wow. Also prepare, I'll take a few questions. Huh?
Can I start?
No, after around 2 questions.
You take them where? Where are you taking the questions?
Okay. Welcome. So today we are here. And yeah, first of all, it's exciting, just everything we've been able to learn today, from blockchain to old school tech to the different things we've been learning. And right now we are here to learn about kuna watoto wako hapa wana kazi. And apparently you guys do the hiring, eh? So I'll have some questions for you and just some motivation for the guys who are here and really like to be where you guys are seated today. So we'll go straight ahead. So maybe you can begin with a story. How you got your first job in tech. Because I know most of you have been other companies before you joined where you are. So how did you get your first job? Madhali kuconnect, ama? Yeah. So we'll start with Houston.
I don't think there's anyone in our age group whose mother connected them to tech. I don't think that happens. But I've actually never been employed. November this year will be 10 years doing this. But the way it started was there was a hardware guy who used to fix our computers, and he felt that I was really interested in the things that he was doing. So one time, just before I finished high school, he told my mom, during the penultimate holiday, that, hey, huyu jamaa akimaliza shule asikae hapa akimaliza tu githeri. Wacha akuja akae na mimi anisaidie job. So I was actually the monkey boy of a networking company. The monkey guy is, before Wi-Fi, there used to be LAN cables going through the roof. So I was the smallest guy, so I was the one who used to go to the roof to lay the cables so they could configure the networks. But then I fell out with him because I started seeing that I was actually helping him make money and he was not giving me any, like literally, not even pesa lunch. Nope. So what I thought was I need to do something for myself to start making money. He had a cyber cafe. I figured, you know what, there are no flash disks. So when you come, you download things, it's a problem carrying them away. I bought a pack of CDs. I printed a poster that said, download whatever, we'll burn it on your CD for 20 shillings. So I made 100% profit in a week and then bought 2 packs of CDs. And then the wife who used to man it became upset. She was like, why are you making money on our premises rather? So she told me I couldn't do it. So I quit. And they continued. They turned half of the cyber into an accessories section. And it's still there to date. But then that's when I discovered programming online. I taught myself, and here we are.
Great. So Sam, maybe you used to come to the MLab testing room. That's where I began. So maybe you can, I don't know whether that's when you started or. Yeah.
That's a really good story. It's a tough one to top. I'll talk about the first sort of full-time permanent job I had with a startup. It was called Mama Mike's. And the founder of Mama Mike's kind of came up to me and said, hey, want to spend a weekend in Limuru in a farmhouse? Yeah, sure, I'm down. I'm not doing anything. So we go out to Limuru, and the whole dev team is there. That's like 2 people, 3 maybe. They've got bundles, like bundles for days, pull out their laptops and start coding. It's the most peaceful, serene coding experience I've ever had. Just cows grazing in the distance, beautiful Limuru farmland. If you're trying, and I'm giving you leakage, if you're trying to recruit devs, you can weaponize the rural kind of environment, and just sort of hung out with them, worked alongside them, saw what they were doing. And on the way back, almost as a by the way in the car, they're like, oh, so you want to work with us? Yeah, sure, see you on Monday.
Oh, interesting. The greatest project I ever did was in Shags also. So, okay. Yes, Shiro.
Was that farming? Like you?
Somehow.
I think it's hard to top that one. My first job in tech was as I like to think of it as a cloud infrastructure sort of thing. So this was, how old was I? I think I was 20. So I worked for this software company in Parklands called Dataposit. That was my first job, and this one I was connected, by the way. I wouldn't even lie.
It happens. Okay.
Oh, is this like this thing, you want to make cash, it's the holidays, so an uncle of mine used to work there. So it's basically the person fixing cables, going to CIC data center and freezing myself. Yeah, so it was quite interesting because I then got to interact with lots of like internationally recognized software vendors, VMware, Veeam, Cisco, and I wasn't really programming at that point. I was mostly just doing systems architecture, and yeah, I fell in love with it. I think it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Okay. So, of course, working at iHub, I get to interact with a lot of co-founders for different business, and they say that skills, it's hard to get skills for the companies just like you guys are working in. So in your experience as CTOs or CEOs, what do you think, or just give us the process. What goes into looking for skills? Where do you look for guys? Guys are here, they're wondering, bono sinchukue mimi. So how do you source your guys, and how do you get them to an interview until the point where now you get to hire them? So we'll start with maybe Sam. Sam can take us through. At Jumo, how does it go?
So I think for Jumo, I would say that our emphasis is not that heavily on particular skills. What we look for above all is learning agility, and evidence of learning agility. So you've got this really deep passion or interest that doesn't necessarily align with what we're doing right now, but at some point in the future, it might. Also, if you've got diverse interests, there's a pretty good bet that if your fundamentals are sound, you can pick up what you need to learn. The corollary to that is that if you join Jumo, we are not trying to keep you on one track. Like, we hired you for this one skill, and if you ever start wanting to do other things, you're looking for opportunities outside Jumo. So we've got quite a bit of internal movement where people came in to be a software engineer, now they're becoming a data engineer. They came in as an engineer and they want to be an agile lead, or vice versa. I think it's important to not pattern match too closely on skills, and I realize that is going to depend on your context, where you are in your journey. As a startup, maybe right now you just need someone who can hack Python. But as far as you can, find flexible people who can grow into what you need, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now.
Okay. Malande, how does it go at Skyline?
Ours is a bit of a weird one because for 9 years, there were only 5 of us. And then over the past 1 year, we've grown to about 45. Yes.
Organic
hockey stick growth is that one. But the fundamentals have not changed. And I actually think it's because of the foundation that we lay over the years that we're getting the kind of people that we're getting right now. Whenever we're hiring, we look for 2 things. One is aptitude. That has to be there because it's not charity. And actually, there's a guy we hired 3 years ago. He joined, and everyone was so smart on the team. Like, he came and told me, "Mazee siezi hack." So I actually let him go. And then he went and upped his skills, and now he's back in. So aptitude has to be there. But the second thing is culture fit. So the person that you're hiring has to really connect with the team that already exists. And that's because of what the team wants to achieve, not just in the market, not just with its portfolio, but as a team itself. We call ourselves the Martians. So there's a whole list of things that are valuable to us and the way in which we interact. That now the people who actually join us, most, like 90% of them, have known about us for about 5 years, and they're like, one day I want to be in this team. And so they join. So typically we tend not to hire beginners, not because we have anything against them, but like it will be even unfair for them to be on the team because guys move so fast. And it's actually also something that a board director mentioned to us about 6 years ago, which is, so he's in Google, and he says the way Google hires is they always hire someone who's better at a particular thing than the existing team. And so that way, whenever they come, you're not spending so much time, I mean, there's companies that could do that, trying to bring them up to speed. Every time someone new comes in, they really spark the psyche of everyone because it's like, whoa, you can do that. So everyone tries to become better because of this new person that's come in. So aptitude and culture fit.
So it seems the dynamics are different. You don't take beginners, they take guys from scratch. And I don't know, maybe Shiro, you can, before you tell us about Frontline, how you guys do it. Also add on, I've seen some companies really leverage on Moringas, Andelas. So guys who, after school, they went to these particular schools where now they sort of concentrated on what a particular coding language, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, at Frontline, actually, at Frontline, we actually prefer the from scratch model. That's what's been working for us, I think, for the past 6-7 years, because now is when we're facing the inflection point where we have senior developers now venturing out to do their own thing, start their own companies, join other teams because, it's sort of gotten to a point where they've overutilized their technical skill or capability with the stack that we currently have. And on the point about going to schools such as Moringa to recruit for fresh new talent, I am a big fan of that model. Actually, one of our best developers we have at the moment was from the previous CTO going and giving a speech at Moringa and getting someone from there. So I think it's a model that works. I guess it depends also on the kind of hire you're looking for, because one of the key mistakes I find most employers make is you don't really answer the question what problem you're solving before you go out and hire. Because it could be you just want someone to improve your cloud infrastructure, for instance, if you're a SaaS company, or you just want someone to code Python. So I think these are also very essential questions to answer.
Okay. And where do you guys source your devs? Apart from Ringers, apart from posting on the iHub website, where else?
What's worked for us a lot because of the culture fit angle is the moment we bring in someone that is really good, we milk them dry of leads. Like, who else do you know? Just not 2 people, not 3 people. Who's the one person that you would want to join this team that you'd be happy to work with? And so about 3/4 of the people that joined our team over the past 2 years or so are people who already have some history with someone on the team as well. So they can vouch not just for their technical skills, but for their character, which is one of the most serious problems in our market. Someone might be a rock star, but they just switch off their phone for 3 days and you have a deadline. So you avoid that kind of crop of developers when you have referrals, because now the guy who referred has his reputation staked on bringing that person in.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, I will double down on the referrals. Referrals are a fantastic source of talent, and like Huston said, guided recall, where literally we just go in, close the doors and say, everyone's got a sheet of paper, write down the 10 people that you enjoyed working with the most and would love to be here. Forget whether or not they're free at the moment. Forget whether you think they could work at Jumo. We will figure that out. We'll talk it out with them and see where they're at. That said, with referrals, I think the challenge is twofold. One, it's a trust but verify situation. So you want everyone to feel very, very strongly that joining the company, they had to clear a bar, and I can trust that the people on either side of me know their stuff, have my back, and so on. The other is, culture fit can turn into conformity, and people tend to refer people who are like them. So you want to introduce some sort of randomness into the equation so that you find this nice equilibrium between people who all look, talk, walk, act, think the same, and wild card kind of hires that you couldn't have anticipated. We've also had a lot of leads come from LinkedIn, a lot more than we thought we would. So we post jobs on LinkedIn. It costs money, but it pays back many times over.
Okay. So skills is not a factor to some companies, and then skill is a factor to some companies. Let's talk about work experience. So you get 100 CVs on a particular job, and you narrow down to 3. What distinguishes the 3? Is it this one has worked for Safaricom, an X company before, so is more likely? And then let's talk about salaries. So even as we talk about how do you choose amongst the many CVs, and then how do you offer your, is it price or let's say salary? Yeah. Okay. Shiro?
Yeah, I think for us, especially at Frontline, when we're sourcing, like when it gets to the final 3 CVs, and this is like from my most recent experience, just going through the last round of hiring, it just boiled down to just that one question: is what is the problem I'm trying to solve? Because it's always like you always have to go back to the why, because that will probably make one of the CVs sort of float up automatically, because maybe this person has more Groovy Grills experience, this other person is more AWS centric, and you then go back and ask the team, what is it that we need? And we do this actually as a team collectively at Frontline. It's like a very inclusive process where we sit down and check if this person fits the culture really well, if it's a skill that we're looking for, and then that also determines the price, because if it's a rare skill, then you need to pay for it, because it's a supply and demand thing. It's not they'll leave and someone else will make them an offer. So, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Malande, how do you determine how you pay guys? The 45 guys.
Yeah.
You must be rich.
What? No. It just means that I have cash flow. Those are they're not the same thing. So we have our rate card that even with our clients, we, for whether it's a fixed term project or whether it's a retainer for a certain kind of skill set that they need. And so we have a sort of internal measure where we're like, for this person to be paid this amount of money, they need to have done X hours for X number of clients. So we think we are pretty competitive in the way we pay. We try and we try and make it actually. So I just hired. Actually today I just got the acceptance. So again, it's not just Skyline. Skyline has 7 other subsidiary sister companies that are doing things that are chini ya maji, but by next year you will know, hopefully. And I already have one of those companies with a lady CEO, and I just hired the second one today. Whatever she quoted as what she wanted to be paid, I doubled it. Hey. And that's because she's actually really good. She's experienced. She's she left her job in 2017, early 2017, because she had a kid. And there's this thing in our industry where a lady leaves, has 2 years gap in her CV, and all of a sudden she thinks that she's worth much less because she's been away from work. I can't do that. I can't sleep at night knowing that I'm exploiting people's weaknesses. So I actually said, I think you're worth way more than this. In fact, if we get 2-3 more clients over the next few months, I'll increase it still, because I want you to feel like a part of this thing. So we are pretty transparent, we are open about it. If someone underquotes, we actually add onto what it is that they are asking for. And part of the reason why we are breaking it up into, or rather increasing the number of companies, is to also increase the ownership capability of it. So it's not this one thing that has one superstar at the top, but that thing that you've worked for 7 years, you think now you have to go start your own thing to do something meaningful. We're starting enough serious companies for you to actually see that grow, and 20 years from now to be like, you know what, I was a part of that and I built it as well, just as much as Huston did.
Great.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So allow me to jump to the next point of women. What's the men-women ratio amongst your staff?
Is that mine?
Yes,
I don't want to hog the conversation.
Just answer that, just that.
So as of now, women are about 25%. And to be honest, I'm not surprised, and there's nothing to be ashamed of about it, just because men are more interested in things and women are more interested in people. So if the kind of work and environment that we are fostering has more to do with things, it is no surprise that there will be less men. And so actually part of the diversification is to really, as a tech company, begin to build our own products that have people at the center of it. And then that way, you can get people who don't necessarily want to do things to come in and do people things because they're better at it. Okay. So that's just a fact of life, I think. So yes, we should encourage ladies to be more in STEM, but again, if they don't want to, don't force them, don't make them feel like it's less. They could come into the field in ways that make it meaningful to what suits them.
Oh, yeah. Interesting dynamic there. So Jumo, what's the gender balance?
I'll just talk about the gender balance within the engineering team, because that's where things are bad. And it's about 1 in 10.
1 in 10.
It could be a lot better. I think the one insight I'm going to add here is I sat down with a really great coder, and she wasn't looking for a job. I just wanted to know, what does Jumo look like to you as a place to work? Candidly, there's nothing at stake here. I just want to pick your brain. And I heard from her, and we've gotten feedback as well, that the kind of trial by ordeal interview style that we have is going to put off some people. And I think this idea of what problem am I solving? If your interview process is geared towards people who can, have ice water in their veins and can keep it cool and calm and collected under stress with everyone asking them to solve some problem, or walk them through some code that they wrote, you're going to fill your organization with people who enjoy that and thrive on it. So I think the lesson I took from that is the process itself. There is, your organization and what is it doing, and is it interesting and attractive to a diverse audience? But there's also, what does the entryway into your organization look like, and does it put off all kinds of people who would be fantastic without you knowing it?
Okay, cool. It's great to have a lady CTO in the panel. So ulifikaje hapo, as in, there are ladies here wondering, CTO Frontline, how? And then is it true that most women don't prefer the really technical jobs? They'd like to do maybe marketing in tech, things that have to do with people, like Malande said?
Well, Okay. I can't speak for all women.
Okay.
I'm actually the worst woman to ask this question because I went to school. I think I was in a class of. I don't know what's happening with my mic.
Just use this one.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but gender balance in mics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I was in a class of 60 in my computer science class. 60 students, there were 5 ladies. And it's...
Just give her that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, since the mic doesn't like me. And so I was mostly surrounded by male colleagues, male students doing projects. At work, when I go for internship, it was just mostly men I was working with. So I feel like I had a more natural sort of inclination towards tech, just also primarily because of even interests growing up. But yeah, I don't know what the exact reason is. I like what he said about maybe our interests being more around people and not things. It's an interesting thing that is worth exploring. You know, if we start building technology around people and not things, or just maybe change the way we describe some of these problems that you're trying to solve in tech, maybe the adoption rate could change, maybe the interest when it comes to women would change. Ours is also bad, the ratio. Like, I'm the only girl in the tech team, and
Yes.
it's something that we are really looking forward to changing, but it's not looking, like, honestly, it's looking a bit bleak. The last round of hiring, like I said before, I think we got 174 applicants, and only 1 was a lady. So yeah, it was pretty bad. So, and you can imagine if she's the only one applying, then you're just going to you want to meet this person, you want to talk to them and see if it's possible for you to have an opportunity to at least have some gender balance, or try and see if, they have the skill that you're looking for. And yeah, she was actually pretty good. She made it straight to the top, but well, the employers also had problems with gender balance on their side, so they also made her a better offer. But yeah, it's a it's a problem that unfortunately I do not have the answer to. But I have observed that the gap is usually during the transition between college and the workplace, because there's people, I think most people who went to, I think JQuat Strathmore will tell you, we were like almost 50-50 in class, 40-60, which is a fairly good representation, but when it doesn't translate in the job market, and that's something worth having a deeper discussion about. Yeah. Okay,
cool. Let's talk about retention. So you've brought in some guys from scratch. They have worked with you. You pay them 60K. And suddenly they become so good and they get a job.
People get paid that low?
Man, you should apply to this place. Huh? So you're paying them 60K and their Ruby skills are up there. So all of a sudden, Startup X comes in and offers them triple. Skyline comes in and offers them
that's
triple.
more like it. It's more like it.
And then you have to get someone from scratch. And then, so how do you retain staff? What do you use to retain talent in your startup?
This question is obviously not for me, right? Because I'm the...
You are 10 until this year? Okay, so maybe some can tell us.
I think you have to put that 60K or 160K or 600K or whatever it is, you have to put it in context.
Okay.
There's value that people gain from being with you on that journey, and the 60K is just a part of it. I talked about, this first job where I went out to this farmhouse in Limuru and worked with these people. And typically when developers left this place, they saw a 5 to 10x increase in salary, and so clearly they weren't there for the money. Culture is up there. It might sound cliche, but people will go a very, very long way to work in a place where they feel it's inspiring, they want to go there every single day. There are organizations paying crazy salaries and having massive turnover. And I think as a startup, your advantage is that you've got so many more degrees of freedom on some of these things that you can compete. I mean, I'm not saying in a head-to-head brute contest on salary alone that you're going to win, but you've got a lot more dimensions, a lot more freedom to play around with culture. I think growth paths, understanding where people are today, where they want to be, where your organization, where your startup, where your company is going, and how you can help each other along that way is really, really important. Because right now, I think the competition for talent is international. You really shouldn't be looking over your shoulder at another company across Nairobi. It's international. And so you have to think, how am I going to grow this person? Or what are they going to be 5 years from now, or however long it is that they stay with you? And if you take your eye off that, you're going to lose people really, really fast.
Oh, interesting. Shiro?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think making the path for growth very transparent to the team, showing them how much each tier is worth, and showing them the company's commitment to getting them to that senior position is essential. It's very fundamental to just getting the best out of your employees. And at Frontline, we make this very transparent. I mean, when I do my reviews every month with my devs, because it just makes for a better relationship. It makes for a better sort of culture. Because I feel like you can't get good at giving someone feedback if you only do it once a year. So if you're doing it regularly and you're reminding them constantly that, oh yeah, you're here and this is where we want you to be, and this is a clear trajectory towards the thing that you want to be, or we're not doing very well on this side, you should probably improve on that, then it's easier for me to justify not giving you a raise, or giving you a raise, or even skipping you over to the next year. But we make those very, very transparent, including like everything, the requirements, the figures, the values, the title changes, everything. And I feel like that's very important in most companies. I'm not very sure if this is applicable to bigger companies, where you have like the direct engagements, maybe, if you have HR doing that for you, but for us it's very crucial in ensuring that devs' path for growth.
Okay, so Shiro has to leave, and so we'll continue with Sam and Malande. So you mean out of all those years, no one has ever left your company to go and akafechiwa, snatched?
So, a couple of interesting things. So there's two people that left.
Okay.
One I fired because actually wait, there's three. There's four people that left. One is the first guy that I told you about. He came in, he really loved the team, but he wasn't keeping up. He literally asked to leave, and then he came back 3 years later. So that was amazing. The second one that I had to fire, that was the first time I ever had to fire anyone. It is so hard to fire someone. Like I almost fainted. Like I was having palpitations, my vision was blurry. I was seeing him, and then we were in Nairobi garage where like all the meeting rooms are glass. So I'm seeing him waiting for me in the room. I'm like, my goodness, how am I going to tell that guy he doesn't have a job anymore? So in all kindness, I gave him a 3-month severance package to make myself feel less worse, and so that he could. But it was the hire was a mistake. I met him randomly, and he was in a tough spot. I thought maybe he could do something, and so I brought him in. But he actually wasn't. Like, by the time someone is really in a bad spot, it's not always that they don't have opportunities. It's that sometimes they're just not a good person. So that guy I fired, and then there are two others I started a second web design company last year called Digital Legion, and I had 2 permanent employees and a bunch of consultants. And 3 months in, the investor pulled out, like cold turkey at the end of the month when I needed to pay salaries. So that was a tough spot. At the time, I didn't have that kind of money lying around. Don't read too much into that statement. But so I had to let them go. So I actually don't have that experience of people leaving. Quite on the contrary, two of my people were offered, one was offered, 200,000 shillings net to go some other place. The other guy was offered 400,000 shillings to leave the company and go be some CTO somewhere. And both of them said no, even though at the time we were so broke, we didn't have enough money to pay for rent at the same Nairobi garage. Like we would changia each other money to go take a client to Java for a meeting for an update. So again, it's the culture part is so important that someone has to really feel like they are part of something worthwhile. Otherwise, it's up to the highest bidder to get their services, and that's just not worth it.
Okay, cool. So to my second last question, so be preparing your questions. At Jumo, whose role is it to create that vision for the team? Is it the CTO? Is it the CEO? Is it whose role is it?
It's every single person at Jumo. I guess I need to give a practical example of that.
Okay.
For example, I know a lot of people, a lot of teams here doing Agile and therefore have a backlog working through features and bugs and so on. At a company level, we have a prioritization meeting every week. And at that meeting, sponsors will come, sponsors in the software sense, sponsors will come.
We understand.
So you work at Jumo and you feel there's something we could do a lot better, or there's some way we could tweak a product. So you come to the prioritization meeting. Anybody can present at it. It's company-wide. You fill out this proposal and you talk through why we should do this as a company. People ask questions. It's held remotely, so everyone from Nairobi office, Cape Town office, Porto, everywhere can dial in. And when it's done, a survey is sent out and everyone scores things on how strategic is it? Is it good for the customer? Does it bring down cost and efficiency and so on? And that feedback then ends up creating a value ladder for here are all the things we could be doing. Our resources are finite, our time is finite, but you've got input into that process. And for strategic reasons, the thing that you upvoted might end up at the bottom of the backlog or vice versa, but you know exactly why that is. You got a chance to say your piece. And I think when you're a small startup, it's easy to just grab a pizza and have that conversation. What's hard is when you get big and there's 300 of you, to keep everybody connected and not just feel like there's an assembly line. Stuff comes down that assembly line. I pick it up, I make my modification, I put it back and repeat. That's just soul crushing, and you very quickly become disconnected from the greater vision.
Okay. So we have quite a number of students here, and they literally made every effort just to be here. So what would be your advice for them? What should they do in uni, maybe get involved in stuff? What should they do to be more employable? And I'm looking forward to the keynote tomorrow when Dr. Chow will be speaking. Just know how do you bridge that gap between a person who has cleared uni or college or high school and they want to get into employment. So what advice do you have for them?
I would say if you're in university and you're not making money yet, you're wasting your time. Because by the time you finish, people will expect you to have a portfolio. And your second year project of sending SMSs to I don't know what is not a portfolio item. You need to, and you see, we have to be bold and ask for money because it does two things. It makes the person you're asking money from serious, and it makes you serious. Because now, like, someone might send a debt collector if you don't deliver what you said you would. But even for them, you know, we have this problem of expecting free things. And so we don't take ourselves seriously, and we don't make other people take us seriously. So it's really important that you do something worthwhile while you're still in campus. And one way to tell that it's actually worthwhile is that someone else is willing to pay for it. I don't care whether it's 1,000 shillings or 20,000 shillings or 200,000 shillings. When we got our first major client, Nation Media Group, I was in second year. And halfway through the project is when I was like, okay, guys, we have to wrap this meeting up. I have a class. Then everyone was like, wait, you have classes? You're in uni? You don't have a bachelor's degree? And, you know, looking at the amount of money they were paying us to do that work, I mean, initially they didn't care because the portfolio spoke for itself. And they knew that having us in the room was not only advantageous to us, it was advantageous to them, because there's other people that would want to pay for us to be in the room. So you don't have to be crazy, like because I didn't do as well as I could have in university because I was working full-time and I was studying full-time. I'd leave home at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. I'd get to the office at 5. I'd work from 5 to 9. That's 4 hours. I'd go to class from 9 to 1. That's, you know, class time. From 1 to 2, I'd do another 1 hour. That's 5 hours. I'd go back to class from like 2 to 3:30. Then I'd stay at the office till 6. I've literally done a full day's work and I've gone to class. Needless to say, my mode of revising for exams was on the morning of the exam, on a boda on the phone to the exam, like this. So which is crazy. You don't have to get to that point, but yeah, be serious about what it is that you're trying to do. And don't seek to be merely employable, because that implies that there's someone out there waiting to give you work. Seek to be vocationally secure, which means either you will be able to do your own thing, or someone will come hunting to either have you as a co-founder or as a partner or as an employee who is paid really well.
Oh, interesting.
So I've been happily married for a while now. Stay with me, this is relevant. And
yeah, we weren't so sure after you talked about sponsors.
Thank you, Huston. And so I didn't know that ghosting was a thing, like ghosting in relationships. I actually read up on this, like studied it, like, wow, why would people do that? And my mind was blown. But then subsequently, my mind was blown even more, and I realized ghosting is a thing for some people professionally. Like, I said I'm going to do a project for you, and then suddenly I'm not picking up the phone, I'm not responding to email, I'm just sort of pretending you don't exist. So my message goes out to the kind of individual that, as Huston says, they get it. They know that if they're not making things that people find useful, they're wasting time. Whether that's because they're getting... Usefulness can be defined many ways, but the other extreme is to overcommit, and especially if you, for the first time in your life, are discovering, wow, people are willing to pay me to do this thing that I find insanely fun. Person A comes and says, here's a project, I'll give you 100K. Person B comes and says, here's another project, it overlaps with person A's project, but it's 200, and you're just like, I can't pass that up. So you make all these promises to all these people, and you feel like, a superstar. You feel desired and wanted. Some of this is stuff that I have dealt with, you might be able to tell. And ultimately, you end up overcommitting, trashing your own reputation, creating this paradox in people's minds, because they're like, that guy is brilliant, that girl is brilliant. They know their stuff. I know they can do great work, but for some reason they're just not doing it. Try and optimize for learning. when you're building useful things, when people are coming to you, ask what's going to teach me the most, what's going to position me for the next step, rather than how many projects can I stack together in 1 month, to make the most money, because you will probably come to grief that way.
Yeah, if you stack that much money at that rate, you will never be a full stack developer.
On that high note, I'll open up the crowd for questions.
Actually,
questions, yes.
let me just start.
Sorry, before you start,
Okay.
I'll only take 3 questions. So,
Okay, my name is Vincent. I have 2 questions, but the first one goes to everyone up there. Okay, considering your recruitment, do you take guys coming from other industries? Like me, I did a course in journalism and public relations, but I got tired chasing news whether there was demolition in Taj Mahal or the governor discovered dead bodies somewhere. It was not a good career. Then I started joining. My story goes like this. If you know Kevin, okay, let me. Hold on. Okay, this is
That's the first or the second question?
Clearly haven't stopped.
Yeah.
I'm still on the first question.
You're still a journalist at heart.
So I would like to bring up my story like this. If you know someone called Kevin System, or you can just go to Twitter, like twitter.com/Kevin or Instagram.com/Kevin. He was someone working at Google as a marketing executive, but when he was there, he realized he could learn to code, and then the engineers recommended him to join the coding program. But Google refused, saying we cannot take in someone who works in marketing. So he left Google and went and started learning somewhere. Then after some time, he opened his own company, and the company is Instagram.com actually. That's the guy who founded Instagram, he's a marketing. So for you guys, I'm asking, do you pick guys from other industries who come, maybe someone who comes to learn, but he has knowledge, maybe you can tap in their knowledge, or you are strictly graduates who come from the university who came from a computer science course and come to your company like that? And then now the second question goes to the Skyline, where the money is. So, I think that's where the money is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I heard you speaking about the culture fit. Culture fit, does your culture tolerate or frown upon the imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome, I don't even know the meaning, but it's something like someone, someone is good, but you go to a company, kila mtu it's so good, but pia you are good, but you find yourself ujamini. Does your company frown upon those people? You give them grace period, then after some time unaona huyo ashiki laini, unamwonyesha the culture and all that.
Okay, I'll try to be quick just so that we have time to actually say things when you ask the questions. So one, yes, we do take people from other industries, but who already demonstrate that they're learning tech for themselves. One of our best designers is a lady called Irene, and she has a master's in actuarial science. Nothing to do with design, nothing to do with code. But she got into Moringa School and started doing things on her own, and was actually mentored by one of our co-founders for a while. And then it got to the point where we actually could take her in. But that mentorship was happening on the side. It wasn't within Skyline. One of our best developers has a degree in food science. There's a guy who joined 3 months ago who's a carpenter who codes really well. And because he loves hardware, he actually writes code and integrates with hardware. So there's some solutions we're building that actually have a hardware element, and he can do the whole thing. So yes, it is helpful, and those kind of people actually help you think differently because they have angles to the problem that you might not have thought about. It's also helpful when you're going to pitch to an insurance company and the designer has an actuarial science degree, for example. So I milk it completely. About imposter syndrome, I think the guy who left is an example. That was a real imposter syndrome. And that's fine. It should not be tolerated. But then it is up to the people that are leading the various teams to identify when something is really imposter syndrome, or just a personality issue, or because people grow up differently. There are guys who their parents hug them goodnight every night. They're confident. They're like, hey, what's up? I am glad to be a part of this family, as it were. There are guys who, like, you get an A and it's like, why did you get an A- in one subject? So it doesn't matter how good they are, they just can't feel like they actually are what they are. And there's a real example here where, again, a lady that joined about 3 years ago as a front-end developer, she actually, like, this was crazy. I had heard about her, I saw the CV, I wanted to do a face-to-face with her. And the morning of that meeting, she canceled. I was like, what? So, you know, the purely professional side wants to be like, you know what, Ishia. But then I was like, wait, I'm not actually sure what's going on here. So I called her, I was like, wait, what's going on? I was waiting to meet you. Why are you quitting before it even starts? And she was like, my laptop has an issue. I don't want to waste your time, so it's okay. I was like, are you kidding me? Let's meet. Let's just talk about life. And I hired her on the spot. So, and now she's actually working on a pretty cool startup that, again, you'll hear about next year, God willing. But yeah, so it's up to the person who's leading to actually find out whether it's actually imposter syndrome or whether it's just a confidence issue.
Interesting.
Yes, Jumo absolutely gets people from all kinds of different backgrounds. Just like Huston said, we have a senior engineer who studied mechatronics and another one who did industrial chemistry. It's about showing your commitment, show that you've made some investment. It didn't have to be in a lecture hall titled, Computer Science 101. As for imposter syndrome, this is interesting. Recently, we started doing performance reviews where it's a little bit like poker, where you'll rate yourself and your team lead will rate you, and very often the team lead's rating the person higher than they rate themselves. And that's probably a sign that they're doing everything right. They are focusing on the right things. They're helping their teammates out. They're learning and growing and progressing, but they're not confident. It might be as well that the team lead isn't giving clear feedback, like, good job, well done. That was stellar. And so it's a learning experience for people on both sides of that conversation. I think the real problem, though, is egomaniacs and people who think that they are better than everyone else. Thankfully, we don't have any of those, but if you have one of those, I think you've got a much bigger problem on your hands than someone who thinks they're not good enough despite doing really, really great work.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. I'm Oscar, a student at Pioneer International University, a third-year student.
Quick question.
Sure. So, partly, thank you for making me feel useless because I'm a third-year student not earning anything.
Yeah, a seed has to die before it grows. So you're welcome.
Still, I'm glad to be here for making my lunch stipend, which I saved to come here, worth it. So, the question is, you said you're looking for skills. He's not looking for skills. As for you who's looking for skills, us as graduates, as undergraduates, once we graduate, I have 0 work experience on my CV. I apply for a job, and definitely, I'm 100% sure once you look at my CV, I have 0 work experience. You definitely throw away that CV. In such situation, because you are mainly such people like me, how do you handle such people? And as for you, the one who's looking for people who don't have skills, well, in a scenario, students, you all know, anyone who's a software developer inside here knows what we learned at school is not viable. At most, what we take the effort to learn is what makes us who we are. But still, such people, you cannot interact with them. Like, there are people I know who are good in class. They're taking the effort to learn, they have the skills, but they're not here. How do you find such kind of people? That is your question, and here's his question.
One last question from here, and then we funga questions for now.
Okay, my question is a bit okay. First question is, if you've ever had for a senior developer position, like what was your expectation of the person you wanted to hire? Because I'm not sure what that title means. And also, why isn't it a habit of companies to be transparent about their salaries when they're posting job positions?
Let me answer yours first. Senior developer, if you don't know what a senior developer is, it's okay. Because if you had worked long enough in the tech industry, you would. But just because you've asked, and thanks for asking, a senior developer is someone who has been in the trenches long enough to understand how all the bits work and fit together. They're usually an expert at one particular thing, but they've worked with all the other people that are required to make it become a complete product in order for them to actually be like an official lead of the dev team. So the moment you hire a senior developer, they can actually help you not just with planning how to implement the project, but they can also let you know which other skills are required to make the project happen. So that's the role of a senior developer. Has nothing to do with age, but most of the time it tends to be because it takes time. What was the other thing you asked?
Why don't companies...
Transparency. Oh, transparency. Because use cheddar as your bait and you recruit a rat. That's a line in a song somewhere. Yeah, you want people to come work there because they want to come work there, not because it's going to make them a lot of money. And Kenyans can get really creative the moment they have enough incentive. Like the guy will be added to some portfolio that he never was a part of, and now it's in his CV, and so you don't really want that to be the selling point. Just the same way you don't go on a first date at Kempinski because you set yourself up for failure. So I think that's the main reason. It just isn't. Even Google won't. I mean, unless you're really, it's very rare, even in companies that we admire, to find them saying, okay, this is the salary. And more so in Africa where we're negotiators. In places like the US, the rates are very, almost standard. You know that entry level you'll be earning this much, mid-level it's this. In Kenya you say that amount and people again become creative. Or you're not sure whether they are quoting that amount because they expect you to negotiate downward. Like we just have an issue as Africans. So, which is why I don't like quoting for projects, but we have to. So we always mark up because they're going to argue downwards, and then ting, it clocks in where you want it anyways. It's a problem. So there's that. And then for you asked about skills and how...
Skills and experience.
Yes. So the thing is, no one has an excuse because I am not asking for your employment record. I'm not asking even for your consultancy record. I'm asking what have you done? Because again, Kenyans talk a big game. Like we're such good sellers of ourselves. You meet a random guy and you're just talking, hey dude, how have you been? Yeah, bana, mse wangu hapa hivi wa Google, tulikuwa na yeye jana, and then, like the guy has nothing to do with the Google guy, but like we name drop and we, so I'm not asking, for that employment record. What I want to see is what you have done. Because you can talk about yourself in a really amazing way. It doesn't have to be a paid project. And a lot of people in the West do this, whereby someone is in high school, like if they're a graphic designer, they've done postcards, they've done logos for themselves, they have their own brand. If you're in tech, like build something. And then document it. Let us see your thinking behind it, and let's see what kind of person you are and how you address challenges. Because all that we're doing to make money is solve other people's problems. I need to see how you solve problems, not just conceptually, but seeing it through and actually completing a project. To your credit, finishing university, the only advantage it has is that it has shown that you can stick through something that sucks to the end. And that's a plus. That's a plus. So I don't encourage people to quit school because it sucked for 6 years for myself. But it says something that you see things through. And typically with projects and with development especially, it's exciting the first quarter of it, and then the rest is just drudgery, man. But you have to be able to go through with it. So I want to see how you've done that for yourself before I can take a risk and have you doing someone else's problem and you don't finish your own. Yeah.
Maybe before Sam talks, in short, create your own portfolio from now. Put it online, put it on GitHub, put it on Behance, everywhere. Make it alive, have links and all. Sasa?
Yeah, about the senior developer question, the way we think about it, it's like a senior dev is like a three-way cross between an architect, a dev manager, and a lecturer. You have to be a generalist in certain ways. So why do I say software architect? Very curious about technology, so not stagnating, constantly learning, finding new ways to solve old problems, finding new problems to solve with the current tools. Very, very disciplined and rigorous in analyzing problems, not just kind of, I think it could be done, just because I feel good reasons, sound thinking. On that sort of manager front, it could be people management or it could be taking responsibility for big, important things, but ultimately what it comes down to is an ownership mentality. Like, I own the thing that I am being asked to take charge of. It could be the next iteration of our product. It could be the mentorship of another engineer. It takes different forms. But if you don't have some kind of ownership mentality, if you're just kind of waiting to do things and okay with someone else being on the hook for them, probably not senior dev. And the final one is just sort of getting things done. This is where the dev manager kind of mindset comes in. There's a part of you that needs to think, there's the objective, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it done. And sometimes that's going to be taking you outside of your comfort zone. Maybe it is diving into a rabbit hole to deal with something technical, but it might mean going and sitting down with a product owner to get clarity. It might mean spending time trying to understand the customer and their needs. You need to be able to step out of yourself and out of your comfort zone. And if you can do those things, and as was said, it takes time. It's not the most natural thing. Then we consider you a senior dev. I would say it's a very high bar, and typically if you're good at 2 out of those 3, then we'll say, okay, senior dev, and you can catch up on the third one as you go, because you're showing clear leadership. And no two senior devs are exactly alike, in my experience. The question about skills, so just to be clear, Jumo needs you to have skills. Don't walk into an interview with Jumo and have no skills. It'll be awkward and very, very brief. But just to be clear, we have a tech stack at Jumo, actually. We have a tech stack with different choices at different levels: languages, frameworks, cloud infrastructure, databases, etc. What we're not going to do is go out and look for people who can tick every single box. So you have built stuff on AWS, and you know Python or Ruby or Java, and you know message queuing with RabbitMQ, and just kind of blindly look at a CV or even a portfolio and demand that you know every single thing that we happen to be using now. I think to go out and look for people that way would be fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. What we are interested in is people who have skills that may not necessarily align with what we need right now, but clearly have demonstrated that they could learn. So they can switch contexts, and we're okay. We're okay with spending 2 or 3 months with you getting up to speed. Some exceptional people will get an offer from us, and ask, right, I would like to level up before I even get there for my first day. That's exactly the kind of person you want. They're asking all these questions. What do you use? Give me a little toy project so that I can get, hit the ground running when I arrive. If you're that kind of person, you will succeed. We won't just bar you because you did your tech assessment, which is the thing we send you, like a mini project to do, just because you did it in C# and we are doing Java. That just doesn't make sense.
Cool.
One last question over here, and then I think we are done for today.
George has chosen to speak using his voice instead of sign.
Oh, that's...
Thank you. It's a good discussion. I have 3 questions. One, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Closer.
I can talk myself. Let's say you need a developer. I've applied. I have what it takes to join the team. But then I'm going to come with added accessibility needs. Like right now, you see I'm the interpreter. So let's say like occasionally I might need interviews, the interpreter. We have meetings. That's an added cost. So is it an issue for you? Do you accept it? Now my second question. Both of you say you pick new members of your team more through referrals. So let's say you have applied, you have advertised the job. With those people who apply, like let's say I meet your job advert through the iHub blog, the iHub jobs part. Does it mean those people who apply don't stand great chances of getting the job? Or is it that you don't apply, you don't advertise the jobs altogether? Because you said you rely more on referrals. And my third question, you talked about the salary. He did. We have salary, then basic pay. But a good package always includes things like, let's say, medical cover. Let's say, other things like maybe education, training. So your packages, do you include them in your packages? Thank you.
So, off the bat, I am going to say if you're thinking of applying to Jumo and you have special needs or accessibility issues, send us a CV right away. If our office isn't the way it needs to be to support you, we will make it happen. We've got one person with special needs in our office right now, and we're an equal opportunity employer. Talent is evenly distributed. Again, I would see it as, if I'm trying to solve problems at Jumo and I'm overlooking great talent just because they have some particular special need, overlooking that makes me uncompetitive. I'm fighting with one hand behind my back. Why on earth would I do that? About referrals, I said we trust in referrals, but we verify. If you're referred to Jumo, you're going to enter the exact same interview process that everyone else does. The only difference here is, how do we find people? How do we source leads to get into the pipeline? So we still advertise. Our jobs are still on our website. Our jobs are on LinkedIn. Everyone's encouraged to apply through that. Referrals are not going to give you a shortcut to the end. What they will do, perhaps, if someone is referred within Jumo, the referee is going to be told at every point where the referral is in the process, and we're going to make an extra effort to just make sure they have a great experience, because, as pointed out earlier, the referee is staking their reputation. They're saying, reach out to this person, ask them to apply, I am staking my reputation on it. But once people are in that pipeline, it's as objective as we can possibly make it. And we are going to challenge everyone. We're going to try and see the best side of everyone, find out where weaknesses are, and ultimately make a decision. I think the third question was about, sorry?
Training.
Oh, training. Yeah, So at Jumo, we have a learning and development fund. So that means a number of things. If you find a course on Coursera or edX that is interesting and in line with your growth paths that you've discussed, then we will pay for it within reason. Funds are finite, but we will make every effort. If you need to take a short course or you want to do a master's, for instance, and you're going to do it after hours, then we will pay part of the cost, half the cost. And as long as you stay at Jumo for, I think it's 6 months afterwards, then that's done. It's our contribution to you. It's going to make you bigger and better for Jumo. If you move on, you may need to pay back a part of it, but presumably you're moving on because it made you a better engineer or product owner, whatever it is. So we have a program for that, and it is really important, and it's one of the reasons why simply throwing a number on a job advert and saying this is the salary doesn't capture all the value that you're going to give people. We have share participation, for instance. So you can have a stake in the ownership of the company. How do you reduce that to a number on a job advert? You would have to value the company, and that's constantly changing. We'd much rather meet with you, find out where you're at, be very open and transparent about who we are, and if it looks like we'd like to work together, then we will figure something out.
Medical cover?
Medical cover, yes. We have medical cover through UAP.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much most of what he said. The thing you should keep in mind as a person of special ability is people are actually more likely to hire you than another developer with the same set of skills who doesn't experience what you experience for a negative reason, CSR. So people actually want to look like they care. And I'm not saying that all of them don't, but just the truth is, if they hire more people with special abilities, then what it actually means is that it's mostly because of how good it looks. So you actually stand better chances than most people because they will want to look good as the people that are hiring. So that's one. So which means you have to really be careful who hires you because, that runs out. They'll end up on the newspaper for what? Once, twice, and then, they start reviewing their annual expenditure and they're like, you know what? Let's just keep one guy who's like that. We maintain the story without the actual people. So you have to really connect with the people that are going to hire someone like you because you want to guard your heart and your career and don't just buy into, hey, they're going to do stuff for me. They must care. I'm pretty sure that's not the guy sitting on my left. He's a pretty cool guy. So there's other people that are represented by that question, which say more prevalent than, let's say, you can't hear or you're blind or you use a wheelchair. And it's not a disability, but the truth is wives and mothers have very special needs. That's just the way it is, and there's no two ways about it. And so part of the way in which Skyline and the other subsidiaries try and solve that problem is to, so I'm a Christian, and there's 2 verses in the Bible that are quite interesting. One says the laborer is worthy of his wages. So whatever we pay our people, we actually believe they're worth that amount. But if you look at it strictly, especially in an egalitarian view, if a man works 8 hours, a woman has to work 8 hours in order to earn the same amount of money. And that's the logical conclusion of an egalitarian view. There's another verse in the Bible that I hold to and believe, which says, You know, actually it's a parable. Some guys came to work for a farmer. One came in the morning, another one came at noonday, another one came in the evening. And when all of them were paid the exact same amount of money, a denarius, you know, the guy who was paying, once others started to complain, I came in the morning, I came at midday, why are you giving this guy the same exact amount of money? He was like, did we not agree? And did I not honor my word? And so the flip side of the laborer is worthy of his wages is that the employer determines the wages. So for us, the wives and mothers actually get to go home anytime they want. Their priority is their husbands and their children. It does not affect how much we pay them. And the end result of that has been they are way more committed to the company and to the team because they will make whatever needs to happen in a schedule that fits them and fits their families. So the people that do this and try to take on and solve the problem of inequality have to have a heart that cares about people more than the bottom line. And I'm hoping that in a small way, I can show that the bottom line actually improves when you do that, rather than holding people to fixed hours. So that's one. The other question you asked about before insurance was what? Training. Was it training? No, there was one before that.
The cost of having an interpreter to adjust to special needs.
Yeah, so, I mean, if the heart is there for the people, then they'll make it happen. They should make it happen. Training, we pay you enough to... I mean, an online course is peanuts if you work at Skyline. Like, most of them actually just do it on their own. Yeah, so that's that. Medical insurance, I think, so obviously I can only speak for ourselves, but so we don't have medical insurance yet. I won't say we pay enough. We're actually working on it. It's just that a lot of the founders and the team is so young, like we go to hospital on a stretcher. Like that's when we need insurance. Like we rarely, it's obviously, so we're starting to hire a bit. I mean, the oldest person that works with us is like 37. Like no one is above 40. So it's been a very young crowd. So that wasn't something that was at the forefront of our thinking, but it's something that we're working towards in the next 1 year or so. What I will say though is that when you actually care about people themselves, then what ends up happening is, so one of our co-founders has chronic migraines. It's so serious that, and this will sound crazy, it's so serious, last year, total, he worked 2 weeks. Because 25 out of 30 days, he is in so much pain, he can't get out of bed. Again, I wish I didn't have to say this, but he was on salary the whole time. He's been on salary the whole time. And this year, now that we could afford it, we actually got him an international cover with a limit of like $1 million. So he's now able to, he's able to work more because it's also, to a small degree, just a peace of mind thing, knowing that you can go to hospital at any time. So you have this situation where none of us has medical insurance, but the guy who really needs it has it. So you have to think about people and not just how good the company looks in terms of its package to employees or partners or consultants.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have a round of applause for the panel.